What is going on? Welcome back. We got the FFL semifinals. Oh boy, crazy stuff, man. 1 week before the Super Bowl. Oh man, crazy stuff. And let's just get into the two games of the semifinals. But I'm first gonna catch you up on everything. Basically, last week, the Salt Lake Skiers barely snuck past the San Diego Sharks, who now move to the 5th place game. And in the other divisional round game, the Cleveland Elves upset the Roydville Rhinos, surprisingly, to move on to the semifinal, while the Rhinos also moved down to the 5th place game. But yeah, the Wisconsin Weasels, the number 1 seed, and the Charlotte Cobras, the number 2 seed, got the bye week and now played, I guess, as this video is coming out, in the semifinal home game. So let's get into the semifinal game. The number 1 Wisconsin Weasels hosting the number 4 Salt Lake Skiers. And this was, in fact, to be expected. The Weasels handled the Skiers pretty well. I mean, they are 13-2. Skiers are only 8-7. So yeah, Skiers are honestly lucky enough to even get to this point, and I think they're happy with the result no matter what. Yeah, Wisconsin Weasels 186, the Skiers 152. And looking at the notable players for the Skiers, Lamar Jackson, pretty freaking good game with 36 points. But look over at the Weasels, they had CeeDee Lamb with 41 points, and all of the cheating that the Cowboys did against the Lions. Now for notable players on defense, the Weasels had Aiden Hutchinson with 15 points. That's like a tight end's number. That is not a D lineman's number, but he got it done. Good for him. But for the Skiers on defense, their most notable player was Rasul Douglas. 14 points. Pretty good for a defensive back. Lots of big points on defense. And on bench, of course, not many points scored. That's what you want. But unfortunately for the Skiers, they did start Jonathan Taylor with 17, and Zay Flowers with 19, and Jaden Reed with 26. Yeah, he had a pretty freaking good game, and unfortunately for them, he wasn't starting. And now for the other semifinal game, the Charlotte Cobras, number 2, 11-4, hosting the upset, the fairy tale story of the Cleveland Elves. Oh baby! I mean, it was impressive. Cleveland Elves 6-9, the worst team in the playoffs by record, squeaked past the dominating Roydville Rhinos in an absolute upset of the century. But unfortunately, they met their match against the Cobras, 160-124. Cleveland Elves, great run, but it has to end here, as they got not upset. This was definitely supposed to happen by the Charlotte Cobras. And I mean, they switched. Cobras were losing for a long time, and the Elves nearly pulled off another upset, but they just had nothing left in the tank for the season, and the Cobras ended up taking the dub. For notable players on offense, the Charlotte Cobras had a couple, actually. Travis Etienne with 25, as he is not really consistent, but he can do pretty freaking good. They also had Devontae Adams, 37. Pretty good game by him. And if we also just count special teams, Harrison Bott, kicker, 21 points for a kicker. Jesus Christ, man. I mean, he really went off there. And notable players for the Elves on offense, it wasn't much. Amon-Ra St. Brown with 22. Not great, if I'm being honest. Unfortunate for the Elves. But on defense, they did have Jesse Bates with 10, so not terrible. However, for the Cobras on defense, their most notable player was CJ Mosley, the linebacker, with 9 points. Not too shabby. And even more notable players for the Cobras, even on the bench, DJ Moore with 30 points. Wouldn't have helped the Cobras, but I mean, yeah, good game by him. And most notable player for the Elves on the bench was Najee Harris with 24, so not terrible. I would have gotten quite a bit closer. So tough loss for the Elves, but we saw it happening. We saw it coming. Okay. And now to preview the final week's final placement in the FFL. Final games, the championship games, if you will. There's only really one, but yeah. Going from bottom to top, we got I don't really know what to call these. I'll come up with a better name at some point. I'll just call them for this year, the 7th place game, as we got the Green Bay Cheeseheads and the Stunner Boys, and yeah, it's not gonna be great, if I'm being honest. It's just not gonna be pretty. Thunder Boys will be hosting, as they do have the most wins by 1, and both of these teams had a very poor season, if you will. Cheeseheads, yeah, I mean, it really started when they selected, with the number 3 overall pick, Isaiah Pacheco, and not a quarterback, not a wide receiver, but Isaiah Pacheco, and he is now on the bench for them. So, yeah, they now have Jalen Williams, is that his name? Yeah, I think Jalen Williams, and Aaron Jones starting at running back instead. So, yeah, their season certainly didn't go to plan. They are 3-12. Not a good way to end the season, but let's see if this week they can pull off, I guess, an upset. They both suck, so, yeah. But, yeah. Then the Thunder Boys, also not great. They were very confident going into this season, but 4 wins. I mean, it's good to have confidence, but when it doesn't, when you're not good, it doesn't really matter. So, yeah, the Thunder Boys are supposed to win this with a projected score of 149 to 129 for the Cheeseheads. But yeah, this game, whoever loses this game will become the 8th seed and get the number 1 overall draft pick. I don't think they're either too mad about it, because there's going to be a lot of good players in free agency, going to be a lot of good players in the draft, so I don't think they're really mad. Just got to start rebuilding for next year. And now for the 5th place game, we got the 2 teams that were eliminated first round that still made it in, the San Diego Sharks and the Royalville Rhinos. Rhinos very upset that they are probably not even in the championship, because I mean, 8-7, and they didn't make it even to the semifinal. It's not great. 8-7, good year for them, however. But honestly, I think they're okay. They're already a very good team. They went 8-7, and if they somehow lose here, they're gonna get the number 3 overall pick. So I don't think they're too mad about it. But for the Sharks, however, they weren't coming into the playoffs with the highest of expectations. 7-8, not a terrible season. But yeah, I think they're not too mad, but yeah, they get to get a bit of pride in this game. And currently the Rhinos are projected to win 148 to 133. So let's see how that pans out in the 5th place game. And for the 3rd place game, we have the Cleveland Elves, the surprise of the playoffs, I guess, against the Salt Lake Skiers. It's going to be very interesting. The Elves are 6-9. They have had a fairy tale season, really. They started 0-3, came back, I'm pretty sure went 6-3. Now they've lost 6 straight, I think. Confusing season for the Elves, but a magical one in the end, as they had quite the success down the road. 6-9, not great in the regular season, but it panned out in the playoffs. The Salt Lake Skiers, 8-7, number 3 team currently, and yeah, they do wish that they were in the championship. They fought hard, but didn't make it there, and they are currently projected to get destroyed by the Elves. So they're gonna have to figure their stuff out. As yeah, they yeah, it's not looking too good for them. As they aren't starting a lot of good players or players that aren't going to be here. So yeah, gonna be an interesting game for 3rd place. And for the game of the year, the Super Bowl in San Diego. Man, it's crazy. Got the Wisconsin Weasels, by far the best team in the league, 13-2, versus the Charlotte Cobras, the 2nd best team in the league. They were tied for a long time. The Weasels ended up pulling it out in the end. 11-4 for the Cobras. Ooh, baby, it's gonna be a good game. The Weasels projected to win barely, 172 to 168. It's gonna be crazy, man. These teams are also the only 2 to trade with each other, as CJ Mosley from the Cobras was originally drafted by the Weasels, so a bit of a revenge game possibly. You never know. But yeah, Super Bowl, super hype in San Diego. It's gonna be great. But that is going to do it for my semi-final week video of the FFL. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you next time. See you.